Hey guys, Joe Tunney here at Infiniti of Kirkland in Kirkland, Washington, just outside of Seattle, taking a look at a very nice looking 2008 Subaru WRX all-wheel drive that was just taken in on trade here at Infiniti of Kirkland. Now, I noticed on this one when we were working our deal that the Carfax shows an accident on it, and so the customer tells me that on an icy day he was heading to work and going into the driveway there at work, he slid a little bit and hit something on the front end of the vehicle. But when do I believe a customer's version of events when it comes to an accident? Never. I never, ever, ever believe a customer's version of events when it comes to an accident. I like seeing things with my own eyes. So I'm going to pop the hood on this one. We're going to start there. And we're going to see if this was some small fender bender or if this car was struck by a train at 100 miles an hour. Now, if you've ever watched the videos before, you know that there's some pretty easy ways to tell if a car's been in an accident or not. If you remember the movie Top Gun, they always talked about how during the Korean War, the kill rate was such and such, and then they went to these high technology jets in the Vietnam War, and by using technology, they actually lost their dogfighting skills and suffered the consequences. I feel the same way about Carfax. I think once people started relying on Carfax, their brains kind of just dripped out their ears and they stopped using common sense. If you use your eyes to tell you the story about a car's history instead of a Carfax report, you'll find out a lot more valuable information. So, customer tells me that it was in a very modest front end such and such kind of bump, and I'm going to take that to task and see with my own eyes. I've said it a million times, if it's shiny on the outside and dull on the inside, that's good. If it's shiny on the outside and shiny on the inside, that's bad. The reason is that when a body shop is painting something, they really only have one way of painting it. Where on the auto production facility line there, they can actually have two robots with two totally different paint processes. So this is dull on the inside and shiny on the outside, so I like that. But one thing that's quite obvious, and I've pointed out a million times, is that whenever these edges of these screws are turned, and these are quite obviously turned, I know that the car's been in an accident 100% of the time. And so, for whatever reason, they felt the need to take these screws off. I'm going to see if they took the whole fender off, and there's one screw that's the dead giveaway if the whole fender's been taken off or not. And that's this screw inside the door area here. And so if I look at this screw right here, it's called the $1 million screw, and the reason is that it gives you $1 million worth of information about the car. It's impossible to touch up this screw. You can't get at it with a paint gun or even a paintbrush for that matter. You have to kind of work your way around and sort of glop it in there. And so if it looks in any way inconsistent, you know that it's been taken off. This one looks completely original. So for whatever reason, they took the screws off of the interior of the fender, but they did not take this screw off. So that's good, actually, not bad. The other thing I want to look at is the hood itself. So I know that they unscrewed the fender. Did they unscrew the hood? And so if I look at the screws that affix this bracket to the hood, that tells me if they've been turned in the same way that these screws have been turned, and I can do the same thing on both sides. And neither of these screws have been turned on either side. However, 1, 2, 3 screws, all 3 of them have been turned on this side as well. So if somebody were to tell me that this car slammed on the brakes and bumped into something anyway, I would believe them, and whatever it was didn't affect the hood. But I do want to look at this screw on the passenger side and see if it's been turned, and no, it has not been turned. So whatever it was caused both fenders to need to be unscrewed, and so I'm going to bet $1 million that both of these fenders were painted. And so if I look really close, this fender, believe it or not, looks really original. And so normally there's a concept called fish eyes, and fish eyes are when the particulate kind of dust and what have you get onto the surface that you're painting, and then you paint over it. It'll leave a little blister inside there. I'm going to take a look at the other side and see if it looks the same. Now this side actually has a little bit of a different personality, a different kind of finish. The wavy characteristic of paint is called orange peel, and this does not have that kind of orange peel the way the other side does. And I mentioned little fish eyes, and I'm seeing 1, 2, even 3 little fisheyes. So I know for sure that this fender was painted. If that fender was painted, it was done in a very, very modest way. The plastic can be painted a million times and has a completely different personality when it's painted than metal surface does. And so it's super, super hard to tell if plastic's been repainted. And even if it was, it could be totally unrelated to what happened here. It could have been just airbrushed because it had rock chips or scratches or what have you. And then I close the hood. I'm going to look on top of the hood and see if I see any of those fisheyes. This low lights makes it a little bit more challenging, but the hood itself looks completely original. So although yes, I know it was painted here, maybe it was airbrushed a little bit on the other side, whatever the case, I actually believe the customer in this case. I don't think whatever happened here was all that big of a deal, and he seemed like a pretty trustworthy guy, so I'm going to take his word for it on this one. As I come take a look around the rest of the car, now sometimes we discover where an accident has happened and we feel that that's the end all be all of it, but for all I know there were 2 accidents. Or 2 different things. The car hits something and then something hits the car. So all the same rules that apply to the front also apply to the back. So as I go to the back of the car, I'm going to look at all these screws and all the interior areas here and make sure that they're completely original, and they are completely original. By the way, the interior on this car is actually really nice. For a car with a click over 80,000 miles, it's actually in brand new condition inside. In fact, let's take a look inside. This is actually a copy of the shop report. Chris Stefano is our senior technician, and he's personally responsible for all of the pre-owned cars that go through Infiniti of Kirkland. He's been here for a great many years, and although he's not going to win any penmanship awards, I think I can make out we're doing rear brake pads, right fog lamp, and a couple of caps and a couple of bulbs, but no big deal. This car was very nice when it was traded in. In fact, it isn't even completely finished yet, and it looks great, and mechanically it's quite sound. In fact, let's turn it on and take a listen. Nice little custom shift handle there. This car does have navigation. Nice big screen, touch screen. It works really well. Heated seats. It's very, very well equipped. It looks great. It sounds great. It's got a little bump on the Carfax, but if you check out the Carfax, whatever it was, it actually upgrades the car. It says it's worth $780 more than a conventional one, so the kind of accident that apparently improves the value of the car according to Carfax. But this car is really, really nice. It's not a lot of money, it's got a lot of performance, and of course it has all-wheel drive. If you have any questions about this car, questions about your own trade-in, questions about financing, you'd like to see a printed copy of this shop report because we can't quite make out the words on this one, please don't hesitate to ask. I can fax it to your office, scan it to your email, or anything you like. My name is Joe Tunney here at Infiniti of Kirkland. You can reach me at 425-821-1600, or just drop me an email at joet@infinitiofkirkland.com.